The Alpha Course, an introduction to the Christian faith, was started in England over 30 years ago. Nicky Gumbel is recognized as its pioneer. Here he is with an exciting update.
In 1994, there were two guys, Michael and Brian Emmett, who were awaiting trial for the biggest importation ever of cannabis into this country. I think it was 4.5 tons. And they asked for a team to come down from here because they'd heard about Alpha. And the team went from here and they did the Alpha Course, the first ever Alpha Course in prisons. And their lives were radically changed. And they were so excited that every prison they went to, they told the chaplain, they told the other inmates, and Alpha spread from prison to prison. And it's now in 75% of the prisons in this country and in 80 countries around the world. And literally tens of thousands of men and women have done the Alpha Course in prison.
Paul Cowley is the International Executive Director of Alpha for Prisons, Caring for Ex-Offenders, and Alpha for Forces. We're going to learn more about all three. But before coming to know Jesus and championing these wonderful initiatives, Paul's bio says Paul lived an intense life. Grew up in Manchester, England.
I did.
Intense, I guess, is a capsule for a lot of drama. What was going on?
Well, it was just I was born in '55, so Manchester was quite a hard place then. Only child. My parents were, well, they did the best they could, but they were both sort of functioning alcoholics. So it was a pretty intense childhood. Lots of fighting. My father was a violent man. Not to me, but to everyone else around him. And that affects you as a kid growing up, so it affected me.
You know, Paul, I was asking you about Collyhurst, which is would it be a suburb?
Yeah, it's an area up there.
An area just outside Manchester where I spent some time in '81 and '82. And even the people in the church used the word batter for everything. I mean, one woman battered the dry cleaner for what he did to her fur coat, or, you know, I mean, batter this and batter that. The violence seemed to be part of the culture.
Well, the north is quite a hard area. I mean, it's just a tough area. I mean, the more you go north in England, I think the harder it gets sometimes. So it can be quite wild and woolly up there. So, so quite a rough environment that I was brought up in.
And that was the norm. School days?
School wasn't good either. I went to a comprehensive school in Manchester, which was quite rough.
They're like lockdown prisons. We ministered in those. They lock it section by section.
Well, I took my wife back. We went for a little trip back a few years ago to have a look at the school, and she was horrified. It had kind of had fencing around it and a security code to get in. I didn't think it was as bad as it was in the day, but pretty tough school.
They'd have assemblies, and you could not get out of any section because of the way they secured everything. And I remember doing skits about David and Goliath. They didn't have a clue who they were.
No.
In '81?
No.
In '81?
Well, I had no religious upbringing at all. Nothing, even in my school. I don't seem to remember doing any religious education or anything, and my parents didn't do God, so there was a whole void of the God stuff in my life. And everyone around me as well. You're talking about Manchester. I don't remember there being a lot of God stuff. I'm sure there was. There's always been, but not in my environment. You
migrated into crime.
I did. I got expelled from school at 15 through truancy, and I left home. Big argument with my father. My father threw me out. So in my arrogance and youth, I said, right, I'm off. So I lived on the streets for a while. And then I got involved in a gang. And they were great at first. They just sort of took me in. They became my family. But that led me into other stuff and petty crime at first. And then nothing really major, I guess, but just stealing, robbing and different things like that. And I wasn't very good at it. So I had
You got caught.
A lot of times. And that led to magistrates, prison, and I went to a prison in Manchester, in between Manchester and Liverpool.
How old were you when you first went to prison?
I was, well, I only did one short sentence, so I was about 17.
Yeah.
But it was meant to be short, sharp shock, and it was for me. It frightened the life out of me. I went to a place called Risley, which was a detention centre, really, young offenders, and it was horrid. So when I came out, I just knew I didn't want to go back in again. But my mum and dad had divorced, the family home had gone, so, and you know, no family really around. So I joined the army. I mean, that's what I did really. I saw a poster for the army.
There's a place to belong.
It said, do you want a life of adventure? And they feed you and clothe you, and it looked pretty good. So I thought, yeah. So I signed up, and started my career in the military at 21. And that lasted the next 14 years of my life.
Where did love and real belonging and God's light come into your life?
Well, you know what, I think I've always been, or always had been, searching for that. And a long story short, that I left the army, moved in with my girlfriend, during my military career. I went through 2 marriages, 2 divorces, almost an alcoholic, but alcoholics will say that they were almost an alcoholic. And just not a great lifestyle. My army career was good for me. I excelled at it. I loved it. It taught me things. It was like a family. And like you said, they clothed me, they fed me, and it was exciting. I travelled. I did 6 tours of Northern Ireland. I went to the Falklands campaign, and I loved it. But all the baggage from my youth just came with me. Hence the drinking, hence the womanizing, hence the divorces. So my lifestyle was horrendous. I left the army after nearly 14 years. Bummed around for a while. Me and my girlfriend lived together, and I don't know how it happened, but I got this God thing in my head. A few things happened, and I found a Bible, and I looked at it.
You were searching. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. I didn't know I was searching, but I guess I was at the time. And I found a Bible, and I read some stuff, and I just thought, what is this God? Why is no one telling me about the God stuff? And long story short, I wandered into this church, Holy Trinity Brompton, in London.
Home base of
Alpha. I didn't know. It was just for me, someone told me it was a course on God. 14 years in the military, I've done courses on everything, jumping out of airplanes, missile systems. I thought, you know what, I'll do a course on God. Get a tick in the box, find out about him, and then I can move on. But I kind of got more than I bargained for. I really did. And on the weekend, there's a part in the course where we talk about the Holy Spirit. And I think from there, it went from my head to my heart. And I met with Christ. And it was a big shock for me. Probably for both of us, but it was a big shock for me. And when you say about love, when the scriptures were expounded to me and I found out about Jesus, I was amazed, because I found out that he came for people like me. When you look through the scriptures, you see that he talked and walked with the people on the edges of society, the marginalized, the street people, the alcoholics, the drug people involved with drug addiction, the prostitutes. He was right, and that, for me, it was just, I couldn't believe it. And then I found out he loved me unconditionally. I was overwhelmed, and I said, if you have me, then I'm in. And my group leader on Alpha said we should
just
probably say amen.
If you'll have me, I'm in.
That's what I said, if you have me, I'm in. And my Alpha leader said, let's say amen. And I said amen.
Wow.
And that was in 1990.
Not your average sinner's prayer,
no.
but sincere,
well, you know what?
And transformative.
Yeah, you know what? It is a good prayer, actually, now, when I look back. If you'll have me, take me. And my life changed.
Humble surrender. How long was it before they said, we need you at this church and in this program?
Well, it's a long story cut short. Is I went from darkness to light, if I possibly could. It was a big thing for me. I was late 30s. I kind of realized I had to point my life in a different direction. I was living with my girlfriend. My past life was around me all the time, and I felt God say, Paul, I've got a plan for you, but you're going to have to trust me. And in my life, I wasn't really big on trust. And I think that stems from a game my father used to play with me. He used to sit me on a wall in Manchester in this park, and I was about 8 or 9. And it was a game of trust or dare, and I'd jump into his arms. My father was a big man, unashamedly my hero. And we'd play this game, and he'd move further and further away, and I'd dive into his arms. And one day when I dived, he just moved. And then I fell, and I cut my hands and knees, and we went home in silence, because it's my dad. And my mum and dad had a big argument. And I remember my mum saying, I got sent to bed, but my mum said, Arthur, why did you move away from Paul? And I remember my dad's words. He said, I wanted to teach Paul a lesson. I wanted him to understand that he should never trust anybody, because they'll always move away from him.
Oh, dear.
And I guess, and that, my dad, blessed him, he's dead now, but he tried to protect me, I guess, in some way.